Thank you. So, as Hannah said, my name is Agatha, like Agatha Christie. Makes it easier to remember. So my motivation in my university, but also with our industry partners and many universities, we use a learning management system in education. And I feel that if we know better how our learners use the resources we put for them in the learning management system, we can improve their learning experience and also our teaching experience. So, and the learning management system, they don't have enough statistics for us to be aware how the learners use the resources we put for them there, so that in our project, we are also building a tool to analyze the usage data stored by the learning management systems. So the tool that we have now is independent of any learning management system that we are in the process of building. That means we have our own data model that we import data from in principle, any learning management system to the own data model. And we would like also different stakeholders to use it. Content providers, teachers, e-learning providers, and so on. So it's quite important for us that we know which kind of techniques we offer and also which kind of functionalities, and we don't expect these people to be computer scientists specialists, that they don't know something about queries or data mining. So it's quite important for us that the techniques we put in that tool, it's proven that we understand it, and also that the results we give are easy to understand, easy to interpret, so that the stakeholders draw the right conclusions. So that's the big motivation and the aim. So with the tool, which is in the process of building, we have already done some analysis about use of material. And with several courses, we have got that picture. So in this picture, we have the below. So yes. So here, exercise 1, 2 till 7, they are self-test exercises that the student can do. They don't have to, but they can do. And when we have here, what is counted is how many students have, so the blue means look at an exercise, orange means try to do the exercise and submit an answer, and yellow, submit a final answer. And what we have seen that in several courses, that there is an overall drop in the semester. So the exercises are put gradually during the semester, and we see that overall drop. And when we first saw that, we see, well, clear picture. We have a group of students, and as the semester passes, then we have always less students doing the exercises. But then after we thought, are we sure about that? Do we have exactly this group that is always becoming smaller? Or could that be that towards the end of the semester, the students who used exercise 6 and the students who use exercise 7, they could be completely different. We have two different groups of students, and when this is the case, that means that toward the end of the semester, if we have two groups of students, one group used only exercise 6, the other one only exercise 7, then towards the end of the semester, we have still around between 30 and 40 students all together using the resources. But if we have the same group, which is becoming smaller, at the end of the semester, we have less than 20 students using the resources. So that's the idea of the core group, what I mean with the core group. So first, we are not the only one. We have seen that during the semester, the usage of learning management system is decreasing. So there are two works here, and in particular, the second work, I've seen that even if there is this overall drop, it's not a uniform drop, so that they could put in evidence that there are less users, that they are active towards the end of the semester. So there is this overall drop. So how can we, so that's my proposal, to investigate whether we have a core group. That means that the students who attend exercise K form a subgroup of the students who attend exercise I earlier. How to analyze that? Suppose we have a perfect core group, that it's really that way. And here, with this cardinality, this will be the number of students who consulted or used resource X. And this one, X and Y, will be the number of students, so with the bars, that consulted both of them. And if we have a perfect core group, that means the student who consulted X is a subgroup of the students who consulted Y earlier. Then these two numbers here, so I hope it will be the same. Or if we look at the ratio, it will be 1. And this ratio is exactly, if we look at this association rule, so part of the data mining, and if we look at the rule X, if X then Y, meaning if the students who considered X considered Y before, then it measures exactly the confidence of that rule, or which is also the same as the probability, this conditional probability, of having consulted Y, knowing the consultation of X now. And this confidence is 1 then. So, with a perfect core group, and if we have n resources, and if we go that way, that we have the resource 1, 2, till n, and then we have this big group which is always becoming smaller, then we have a deluge of rules, all with confidence 1. That means every rule like that one. So if the students considered X, they considered I before, and we don't have to consider only this rule linking 2 resources only, but if they consulted X, they consulted a subset S, any subset of resources that have been put earlier in the semester online for them. So that's for the core group. So then we have a deluge of rules with always confidence 1. And if we have no perfect core group, then it's just the opposite. The confidence of this rule will be smaller than 1, will be not predictable. They can be 0 if then the students who considered Y and X are completely different. And then we have a deluge of rules where the confidence is not predictable, the opposite. Because with this confidence, there is no mathematical property, transitivity, symmetry, that all doesn't exist. So there is a deluge of rules with a confidence which is not predictable. So my hypothesis is a pragmatical one. We don't look at this deluge of rule. We just check the local rules. What happens locally between one rule here, between one resource and the one just before? So what happened with the students we considered one resource? What is the probability that they have consulted the one just before? And then the global rules. If this seems good enough, then we can go for the global rules. Students who have consulted I, what is the probability that they have consulted all the resources before? There is no real mathematical foundation for that, except that the global rules will give us a kind of lower bound, but which is something which is easy to see if we put any S, any subset here, a subset which is smaller than the number of students is going to be a little likely to be a little bigger, and which is not like this anti-monotonicity property in the association rules. So let's see how this is working in real time or with a real case study. So I have looked at 2 courses, introductory programming and these formal basics, and we had 46 students enrolled in both courses. And they had both of them these non-compulsory self-tests that students can do. And we had that picture. So I looked at attempting these self-tests. So blue, which is the formal course, and orange, which is a Java course, and I looked only at the students enrolled in both courses. And we see that overall picture, that overall drop. So do we have any core group there? So we look at the local and the global rules. So for the local rules, now, so it's what is here. So if they have consulted exercise 2 or attempted exercise 2, what is the probability that they have consulted exercise 1, and so on. So for the orange Java course, we see that this probability, except for the last one, is not so bad, about 0.8. And for the basic course, that's a little bit not that good, or a little bit lower, about 60%. So I just come back here because if we look for this Java, for the blue one, the blue course, we see that the drop is not complete really from exercise 4 to exercise 5. There is a small increase, so that we can just reverse the rule and then measure the opposite. What is the probability that the group who did exercise 4 is increasing to the group that did exercise 5? So that's the meaning of this here. So if I just turn that rule, but it's not much better. It will be 0.6 instead of 0.52. The global rules, well, now the picture, the difference is now much more, let's say. For the Java course, the global rules are, well, being from 0.7 till, except for the last one, 0.5, are about 75%, and for the other course, about 30%. So that means the students adopted a different strategy in both courses. And now for all the rules that I see, we can just drop them and not consider them, but now I did, just to test my hypothesis. So all the other rules, the confidence for the Java course, or the orange one, is never below 0.77. And for the formal basics course, it varies between 0.18 and 0.65, many of them around 0.30. So I come to my conclusion. So for me, it seems that it's only one test, but what I noticed also in other courses, that is local and global rules as representative, as giving a trend, whether there is a core group, for me seemed to work and would be enough. So now, when we extracted these rules, we are not using any data mining tool for association rules, but just queries, which was in that case much more efficient and easier. If I take not only now in that case study, I just consider the students enrolled in both courses, but looking at everybody was the same. And because the same students, we have looking at the students enrolled in both courses, give similar results for this core group, for the trend, it seems that to persist on these self-evaluation tests is a state, so it depends on the course. Students is not a characteristic, not a trait, not a characteristic of the students, but a state, and this is a similar result to Hershkovitz and Armias in their work on this persistence. And then when we are aware of that, when should the teacher intervene? That I am not too sure. I think it depends on the intention behind these self-tests. Some teachers can put them because they think they are very important to do, and the impact on the final mark will be very high. But it may also be just to give the opportunity to students to exercise more, and so depending, maybe first we should look whether they have an impact on the final mark before the teacher intervenes. So it should be put in the broader context, is what I think. That's it. Thank you.
Do we have questions?
I like these questions or queries a lot. That was very, very good. Thank you. one thing I didn't get. When do students have access to these tests?
Gradually during the semester.
Like any time during the semester? So could a student, like late in the semester, catch up on all the
Yeah, in principle, not in the setting we have in one course possibly, but not in the setting because they were open in a time window only.
Okay, I see. Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions? I do have a question. So you mentioned we want to take a look at how what the effect is on the overall outcome of the course, the final grade, essentially. Is that correct? Did you look already at that?
We look at that. So in both courses, we looked at the impact of the self-evaluation test on the final mark. And true, in the Java course where there is a trend for the core group, that means this probability is always higher than in the other one, the impact of these self-test exercises is higher than in the other course. So maybe also that the students adjust their strategy to how they feel that these exercises are. But it was like that.
Yeah, I was wondering about the perceived benefit from a student point of view. Because the final exam is a little far, maybe if they feel that there is an impact on their, perhaps the graded assignments during the course progression of them taking those assessments, maybe that will kind of motivate them to continue doing the self-assessments. So, I mean, not only correlation of the results with the final outcome, but also on all the progress on the assignments they have graded during the semester, for example.
Yeah, this is true. The Java course also has several assignments that the other course didn't have. So that could be also, right, that you have to put all in the big picture.
Yes, and you mentioned the viewed versus submitted versus like the number of students who viewed the self-assessment versus the students who attempted and then those who finished it.
Yeah.
I was wondering if they could, do they get something in return when they submit an assessment? Do they get the correct answers, for example? Or
yeah.
They do. So there is some kind of benefit.
Yes, they get
by
feedback. They get feedback and good explanations. Yes, they do.
And they wouldn't get that if they don't attempt, I imagine.
Yeah, true.
So there's some kind of benefit for them or motivation. Okay, sounds good. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Agatha.